Well, welcome back to part 3 now of what I'm calling the leader's mind shift. The first video we talked about the importance of making that shift from it being all about you as a top performer to now that you're a leader, it has to be about the team. And then in the second video, we talked about some keys of understanding the difference between abdication and delegation. We talked about checking in regularly with your team and feedback, how important that is. And under that topic, we talked about that sometimes the feedback can be a little bit on the critical side. We have to have a hard conversation if someone is not doing well, but it should still be helpful in the sense that that's our motive. And so I'm going to give some insight here of how you can handle that, or at least some keys when you have to have that critical conversation in the area of feedback to a team or an individual in the team. And that's the first thing that we'll talk about. It should always be in private. That type of conversation should never take place on a group call. It shouldn't take place in a room full of others. You need to make a time to, in private, talk about that, have that hard conversation. That is important, and it's going to go a long way. When leaders breach this protocol and they call people out in front of their teammates and so forth, my goodness, the damage gets done to the culture of that team, and everybody's looking at the leader. And now, rather than being able to open up and give honest feedback, they're afraid if they mess up, they're going to get called out. So it should be done in private. That's a big deal when you have to have these hard and difficult conversations. The other thing is that conversation should have be taken with no emotion. So if you're irritated, you're upset, or you're angry at what's going on, that you need to have this conversation, you need to process through that first before you have the conversation. Because whatever emotion, whether it's high disappointment or it's a sense of anger, whatever, those emotions are going to ride in on your words, so that even if you're saying the right things, they're not going to be heard the way you hope that they will be heard. You should not be using this opportunity for just venting. You need to have a safer place to do that. You need to get that process. So this conversation should be in private, but it also needs to be with as much emotion removed from that as ever possible, because that's going to keep you level-headed and thinking and saying the things that need to be said in a way that's going to be much easier for that team member to hear the critical feedback that you may have. And again, it should be in the context of being helpful, not just hurtful. It doesn't need to go to the place of hurtful. It needs to be helpful. And that's really the third key on this. When you have to have that hard conversation, not only should it be done in private and without emotion attached to it, it needs to be done with a charitable intent. And by that I simply mean, I want to help you. I believe in you. We can learn from this. Here are the lessons. Here are the takeaways. I want you to do well. I want to help you get there. So that conversation should happen within that context. It should be done with charitable intent. And your ability as a leader to encourage your team, even when things aren't going well or you need to address an issue, if you can keep those keys in mind, it's going to go a long way. Again, it's part of the leader's mind shift.